Hey y'all! Welcome back to the Optimized Mind podcast, where we explore the ways in which we can define our own unique context, build resilience, and maximize potential. I'm Dr. Kate, your host, and I'm glad you're here. This week, I have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer, functional medicine expert and physician founder of Well Empowered. She created Well Empowered with one commitment in mind: providing you the foundation of health and vitality that allows you to fully bring your gift to the world. How does Dr. H live true to this? By taking the root cause, natural medicine approach, fueled by loving devotion and science. Our discussion focuses on the power of functional medicine in guiding people to resolve health challenges while allowing them to maximize potential and thrive. The importance of caring for yourself from a place of self-love while integrating wellness habits into a sustainable lifestyle. And finally, the importance of creating a 5-year wellness vision, looking at what it looks like to thrive within your own unique context. This is a fascinating and powerful discussion. Let's dive in. So welcome, Dr. H. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's such a pleasure to be with you in your community.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for our conversation. And I was just hoping we could kick it off with you telling us a bit about your path and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, well, I like to say straight lines are boring, right? Which I imagine, many of your listeners can relate to. But for me, making my way to what I do, data-driven natural medicine, also known as functional medicine, really started with my own health journey. And, along the way, the struggles I encountered, and really the sense that the more traditional approaches, while they certainly offer an abundance of gems and really are wonderful resources to lean on in different moments, they weren't working for what I was dealing with. And in particular, for me, it was dealing with my weight being up and down, dealing with digestive distress, I'd say. And so over the course of time, when I started to understand and uncover the root cause of my symptoms and challenges and really, resolve them for myself, I found that what became available was a whole new level of being present in this life. And to me, that's what this work is about, is really guiding people to resolve their health challenges and conundrums so that they can have their life be what it's supposed to be about. So along the way after, as I was figuring it out, I really got keyed into that. This was really important to me to bring this gift to others. Mm-hmm. So from there, I went back to graduate school, got a couple of graduate degrees, and ultimately, launched into the work that I do here at Well Empowered.
I love that. That is really, really inspiring. And just this idea of helping yourself to optimize your own sense of well-being and health, and now bringing that to others through this amazing practice that you have, Well Empowered. And so talk to me a bit about that. Are you helping folks across the continuum of challenges at this point? Are there certain areas such as digestive challenges that perhaps you focus in, or how does that look?
Yeah. So I work with, health challenges and conundrums being things that, I see people who say, I have seen 5 different specialists. They're all amazing. And we just can't skin this cat. Right. Mm-hmm. So those are people who are dealing with things. Oftentimes they'll be dealing with skin challenges, or maybe their hormones are a little out of whack, whether they're a man or a woman. Digestive distress for sure. Everything from constipation to diarrhea to bloating, all of the different things, as well as, chronic infections. So people who keep getting sick and, they just can't figure out why their immune system isn't able to rise to the occasion. And then all things related to weight. So people who are, have ridden the weight loss roller coaster for years or decades. We do the work both to understand what is going on physiologically, as well as to cultivate a whole new relationship with food and with body, and create an experience where people are caring for themselves from a place of self-love. And those are the more common things that I work with people on.
I love that. Yeah, and it's really helping folks to integrate habits and tactics and aspects of wellness into their day to day, which is so important, right? But often so difficult, particularly when somebody's coming already kind of frustrated, having been to 16 places and not gotten any answers. How do you help folks to kind of shift into that space of believing that it's possible to heal from the inside out and to take the necessary steps?
Great question. And I would say there are a few different key components to that aspect of the journey.
Mhm.
And, one aspect is really, one part of that is guiding people in what I call authoring their vision of vitality for their health and their life, authoring their vision of vitality for their health and their life. And that really begins with a little daydreaming almost. It begins with, doing some time traveling, right? And so your listeners might even take this on for themselves, right? Time traveling to the 5 year future and actually getting in your mind, what would it be like me walking around in the 5 year future with my health and my body as I intend and desire it all go, right? And then actually writing that story. So telling the story of you thriving in that 5 year future. So that's one key aspect. Now the other key aspect is we get information. We
Mhm.
get a lot of information. We
Right.
get data. And that
Mhm.
data is labs, right? I always say labs don't
Yeah.
lie,
Right.
right? So we actually get to look under the hood and see
Mhm.
what's happening inside of the body. And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, Kate, when I get labs, when I get a notification that I have labs, I'm like a kid before Christmas. Like I open it up, because I'm so excited. It's amazing to do this detective work almost,
Yeah.
right? And get to see, oh, that person's symptoms, it all adds up now. It all makes perfect sense, right? And the same symptom can have 10, 20, 30 different causes. So it's not like I ever know what I'm going to see. If I did, I wouldn't do the labs, right? But the
Right.
labs really help us understand and put the puzzle pieces together and then create a targeted plan, right?
Mhm.
So then with all of that, when people begin to make the shifts that we see are necessary for them and their body,
Yeah.
the body's amazing, Kate. Like, it
Yeah.
responds typically pretty darn quickly. And so,
Mhm.
within a matter of a couple of weeks, people
Yeah.
who have been dealing with challenges for years, they start to melt away, and it's so great. It's so fun to be a part of that.
That's amazing. That's really gratifying. I hear you. And so it sounds like the labs are sort of the cornerstone of the data-driven piece. That's where you're gathering much of your data in addition to the experience piece and kind of putting those pieces together almost like a puzzle to come up with a
Yes.
direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have people when we're looking at their lab results because the term doctor comes from the Latin word docere, which means to teach. And so
Mhm.
to me, I really do see myself as a teacher, right? I want people to really understand what is going on with their health. To me, success looks like in our partnership is that
Mhm.
through our work together, you have the wheel, right? Like what is going on with your body, you know how to care for your body, and you know how to keep your body where you want it to be, right? And it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that over time there's not fine tuning, but really like you get it, right? And so
Yeah.
it's, when we look at labs and we start to, I start to tell people, okay, what we're seeing in these labs, this
Mhm.
explains this symptom, right? It explains your fatigue. It explains the hives that no one can figure out.
Yeah.
It explains why your body's really just holding on to extra weight, right? Whatever it might
Mhm.
be, for them, it's like oftentimes such relief, like
Right.
almost borderline tears, because it's like, oh, wow, at last it all adds up. This makes sense.
That's what I was gonna say, that there's likely a sense of relief, just, sort of joy almost from folks who haven't been getting answers, who now have answers, and then seeing the successes and the progress they're making as things start to move forward must be particularly gratifying. And it sounds like you're really giving folks agency in their own healthcare journey and then partnering with them in a way that, again, nothing against traditional medicine, but oftentimes doesn't happen. And that partnership piece on a human level feels like it's super important.
Definitely, definitely. And to your point, Kate, when I work with people along the course of the journey, really what I see, as some of the key aspects of people creating a toolkit that
Mhm.
works for them
Yeah,
is, fundamentally people need to be inspired to care for their bodies, right?
right.
And also they need to have information and they need to have strategies, right? They need to kind of bring it all together. And so I
Mhm.
actually give people homework assignments between
Yeah.
appointments because I
Mhm.
want them to learn. And some of it is
Right,
learnings about like their physiology of their body, right?
right.
And some of it is gathering insight so that they can really see their own unique barriers or their own unique challenges and start to work with themselves, in service of their progress.
I love that, and I love that you mentioned the word unique there because what I was gonna say is, it feels to me like in this, kind of health optimization journey, there's really no one size fits all. So we can gather the data, we've got the information, we kind of have a sense, but perhaps, there are different kind of steps, avenues, directions that individuals have to take to get to the same place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really see, this whole caring for our bodies, right?
Yeah.
There people are going to take on different things at different times, and that's totally fine, right?
Mhm.
But to work with someone to, I think about it like crossing the monkey bars.
Yeah.
And part of my job is to say, okay, that monkey bar, that monkey bar is going to make the biggest difference. Are you up for grabbing that monkey bar? Right, and we
Mhm.
talk about what that looks like and how to actually, information translated into action is what we're looking for, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes people will come in and think they just need information, and
Mhm.
okay, yes, they need information, but information and outcomes aren't the same thing, right?
Right.
We need to take that information, we need to turn it into action, and we actually need to turn it into action over and over and over and over and over again, right? Not
Right.
for 30 days. No,
Exactly. We
right?
really need to integrate those actions into our life and our
Yes.
lifestyle. And that
Hmm.
is so, so important and often can be a stumbling block, I imagine, for many people. And so what happens when somebody's struggling on that level? How do you help them kind of move through and beyond that challenge and get to a point where they can truly integrate for the long haul?
Hmm. Well, just like you said before, there's not one size fits all, but a few different things. One is, through guiding them and really creating, authoring their vision of vitality and
Yeah.
staying connected to it.
Mhm.
Just right, creating it once doesn't do the job, but
Right.
creating it and staying connected to it does meaningfully shape the journey. And then, in our partnership, we're looking at outcomes over time. In other words,
Mhm.
we do the lab work, and I expect changes to lead to new outcomes in the way they feel, but we're checking on their numbers over time. So we're actually looking at numeric progress over time, which sometimes, sometimes they're just not always in sync. But to speak to, okay, how do we help someone who is just really fundamentally struggling in making some of the shifts we need, that need to happen to produce the outcomes. One of them is really getting present to the power of our environment.
Mm.
Lots of times we can, think about it like, oh, I should have enough willpower, or another common thing I encounter is, kind of like a belief that gets in the way called it's going to be easy, right?
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and so some of it is really doing some strategic thinking about, okay, what needs to happen, what needs to happen in my environment, that might be in my home, but that also might be the route I take to go to work,
Right.
or that might be where I'm going out to dinner, or, a bunch of different things like that when we're thinking about nutrition. Maybe even who I'm going out with on a Friday night at this point in time. right? As you're starting to make some changes and really working to have them stick. And then, with the strategic point that, kind of thinking ahead, really starting to get present to recurring challenges, navigating how we care for our body as social beings can be challenging, right?
Right.
Because there are plenty of people who we love and adore in our orbit that either their bodies need different care than ours do. That's just how it is.
Sure.
Or maybe they have different commitments, or it's just not a big commitment of theirs right now. So coming up with strategies that work with our real life day-to-day encounters really does play out over time. And then the last thing that I'd say about that, Kate, is oftentimes when people are encountering challenges over and over again and progressing in this area, or taking on new shifts, it's because they have inherited this perspective that I have to be all in, or if I'm not all in, I'm all out.
Right.
Right? It's like that all or nothing approach. And that really is something we inherited. It's the diet mentality, or the, couch to 5K or whatever it is. And, listen, some of these things people get real gems out of, but, the all or nothing approach, when we see it for what it is, fundamentally all or nothing is overindulgence or deprivation. Like, that's how that's expressed. And when we're dancing between those two, it's self-aggression at every turn. Whether it's overindulgence or deprivation, it's self-aggression, right? So when people can start to see that and start to come from a place of self-love, and actually live a question called, what is my best game right now? Like, just right now in this moment, they start to come up with new answers. And it starts to be, they begin to move into something that I call mastering their middle ground. And that's when real magic occurs, when people start, let go of the inherited all or nothing approach and start to play a better game right now, whatever that means. 2 pieces of pizza instead of 5, right? 3 cookies instead of 10, whatever that means for you. That is what I'm for.
I love that. That is amazing because, right, it's really optimizing what's going to work for you within your own unique context. And there's really no one size fits all for any of that. And I love what you're saying about the all or nothing thinking, because it's something that I work with a lot with folks on, is this idea of seeing the small steps that we're taking along the way to that larger goal. And that is so important, to be focusing on that process as opposed to just the outcome. So I think that that is so, so important, such an important point that you make. And I was also curious about this idea of, well, what you said about living in the moment and really being focused and present through this idea of awareness. And it sounds like you're really helping folks to become more aware in the moment, and also globally, about what's working for them and how they're going to reach their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just like any big game, whether someone is playing a big game in their professional endeavors, or in their academic endeavors, or, whatever the case may be, whatever it is, that we need to be doing some thinking ahead, some strategizing, and really thinking about that. Okay, these are long-term shifts, and what's going to work best for me and my life. And also, when I talk about authoring one's vision of vitality, it really is capturing someone's intended experience as well as what that makes available. So really get it, coming from this, how seeing that how we're caring for our bodies is connected to a lot more than what we can see immediately in the moment.
Right, precisely. And what I'm hearing as well is connected to, caring for our bodies, knowing how to do that in a way that works best for us, is connected to our mood, our level of anxiety, our overall sense of well being. So I bet you see a lot of shifts in those ways as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point. What comes to mind is there's this dear woman who I worked with a few years ago, and she came to see me. She had had her second kiddo, and she was super duper tired, which, like, of course everybody's like, well, yeah, you had two kids, right? But it was like, she was like, this is tired at a level that's not normal, right?
Yeah.
And she had gone and done some appropriate initial workup to make sure there was nothing ominous going on with her health, and there wasn't.
Sure.
However, she did have, she had elevated liver enzymes. They did, a liver ultrasound that all checked out, no disease happening. She had a number of different things that were already red flagging for me. Separately, she was on anti-anxiety medication, which wasn't a problem. She wasn't looking to get off of it. I was like, great, it's working for you. No worries, right?
Sure.
We got into our work. Long story short, we, figured out for her, part of her problem was these kind of like clogged up detox pathways, which were feeding inflammation. We measured her inflammation. Inflammation was elevated. Inflammation is it really works a number on our ability to produce energy, or also known as ATP. So that was a key piece for her. We got to work. We did all these things, and kind of like 4 or 5 months later, we checked in, and she said, "Oh yeah, you know what? I forgot to tell you. I stopped my anxiety meds. I just don't need them anymore." I was like, "Oh, okay, great,
Amazing. That's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't even part of our plan. It was just a fabulous side effect for her."
Excellent. I love that.
Mhm.
As she reduced the inflammation, unclogged
Mhm.
those detox pathways, and just opened up so much possibility. That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great one.
Yes, that is amazing. So I'm really curious. I always ask my guests this, kind of beyond the amazing work they're doing, how you're maintaining your own sense of resilience, resilient lifestyle amidst all of this. I imagine
Yeah.
many of these principles apply, I imagine.
So for me, I would say a couple of different things. One is just fundamentally, I'm a huge believer in creating bookends. I can see for myself bookends of my day really make a difference.
Mhm.
And bookends can look different for different people, but for me, starting my day with rituals that have me connected with my vision of vitality,
Mhm.
and with some quiet grounding time. And by the way, I just want to say it doesn't need to be a lot,
Yeah.
right? It really, there can be, okay, your ideal, and then there can be your backup, right? Your backup might be 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, great, that's
Yeah.
fine. I know for myself, a couple of minutes given to connecting to my vision of vitality, my intention for my health, really goes a long way. So that bookend at the beginning, and then a bookend at the end, where I'm really just kind of reflecting on the day,
Mhm.
and acknowledging myself for things that I'm fundamentally proud of myself for, right? They align with my vision of vitality.
Yeah.
And also looking for, is there anything, any learnings, right? Is there a place where I feel like I fell short a little bit that I could learn from, and bringing that forward into the future? So those bookends of the day are really important to me.
Yeah.
And I could say a lot more about all of it, but I think that's a really great place for people to start.
Absolutely. Yeah, just having that point of connection with yourself on either side of the day. And I work with folks a lot on that as well, in terms of particularly at the end of the day, thinking about 3 to 5 things that went well on the during the
Mhm.
day to help get them out of kind of that negative thought loop of I should be better, I should be doing this more, et cetera, that can just go on and on. I find that kind of a practice is very helpful. But I also love what you say about in certain instances, it can be 2 to 3 minutes. And it doesn't have to be sort of a full blown twice a day, 20-minute meditation session, for example, which I think can feel overwhelming to folks. And then the practice becomes nothing because it feels like too much.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly like that all or nothing, right? So, people just really, I encourage your listeners to just what Kate was saying, like really look at what your truth is. Where do you think you could start? Do you think maybe you're like, I can start with 60 seconds of breathing and, getting present to my breath? Okay, perfect. Start there. Just practice that habit over and over and over again. And then at some point, maybe you'll be open to something else. Maybe.
Mhm. Absolutely. And adding on, and who knows, maybe a minute at a time here and there. But I think the important piece is there's really no one size fits all. And for folks to start where they are and build from there.
Yes, perfectly said.
Yeah, excellent. So, listen, shifting gears a little bit, I always ask my guests about hobbies, passions beyond the amazing work that they're doing. How would that look for you?
Well, passions and hobbies. I love to hike.
Nice.
And as we were chatting before we hopped on, I work remotely, and in my backyard, I have some lovely hiking options. So I do take part in the mountains of Switzerland. So that's a
I
great
love that.
joy.
I love that. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yes. And
Yes.
if you make your way here, I will share my faves with you any day of the week.
Wonderful.
And then it's such a joy to be able to explore and travel, right? And in this time where my husband and I are living here, that it can be just as simple as hopping on a train and going 45 minutes away to a little village and exploring. But just traveling and exploring this great world is a real joy to me. And of course, this sounds cliche, but it's very true. Being with our friends and family when we get back to the States, it fuels my soul and in an immeasurable way.
Of course. I love that. So it really feels like, in many senses, the best of both worlds.
It's a good adventure. It really is. It is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, this is really enlightening and really important information for all of us. And I know that my listeners are gonna get a lot out of this conversation. And so as we're thinking about wrapping up, any kind of highlight points that you want to leave us with in terms of optimizing our wellness in the way that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so I'd say a few things. One is, I invited you to do this earlier, but if you haven't yet, I really do encourage you to sit down and do that time traveling to the 5-year future and write down what you intend your experience be in the area of health, right? And also to write it in first person present tense,
Mm.
right? So that would look something like I'm 47, so I might say I'm 52 and my body is strong and resilient and whatever's there, right? So you're going to tell that in first person present tense. The next thing that I would encourage, your listeners to take on is really begin living that question. What is my best game right now? What is my best game right now? And I love what you shared about how when you work with people, really emphasizing that acknowledging of of when people do take actions that they're proud of, like actually experience that self acknowledgement when you follow that question, when you take an action that's consistent with it. I think that's really, it has spiral up benefits. It's a little bit like when a toddler's learning to walk,
Mm.
we cheer them on, and that's we can be that for ourselves.
Absolutely, it's empowering, right? And that's that the whole
Hmm.
idea to find ways to empower ourselves towards progress and just optimizing our overall sense of well-being.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah,
then the last thing that I would say is,
great.
for your listeners, if you have something you're stumped on, right? Like I'm one of many really, skilled functional medicine practitioners. There are plenty of wonderful people out there. Find your person, right? Find someone who can guide you to resolve your conundrum or the challenge you're dealing with. There really is, like, information we get. The data is powerful stuff, and it's quite likely that there's something going on at the root cause that you can learn and address through taking a targeted approach.
Love that. Excellent advice. I love that. So listen, finally, tell us where listeners can learn more, get in touch, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can learn more about me at wellempower.com. And my invitation is If you'd like to explore working together, claim a 30-minute complimentary consultation. And if in that conversation it feels like a good fit, please be sure to let me know Kate sent you, because you will be gifted 10% off your health audit. So yeah, and then if you're on Instagram, you can find me at Well Empowered.
Wonderful. Dr. H, thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's been a pleasure to be with you and your community.
Thanks for being here, all. And as always, please share your ideas and feedback with me. And please, if you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the show. Until next week, onward.